Thanks, Marissa. I'm super excited to be here. How are we all feeling today on day 3? I hope this is not your first rodeo, and if it is, welcome to the experience, and welcome to and I'm assuming it's not your first rodeo with SaaS Viya Copilot. We've been talking about this for quite some time. It's a really exciting thing that we've gotten to produce and build out of our team. And at the end of the day, you guys are seeing it come to life in front of your eyes and gain access to it as we speak every month with the new releases. So getting started, we can talk a little bit through our agenda today. So for those of you who maybe haven't heard of SaaS Viya Copilot, I'm going to go through a short introduction, kind of describing what we do and how we do it. Then I'm going to guide us on a non-technical user's journey through SaaS Viya Copilot, guiding us to how we can take those generative AI prompts and work through the entire data and AI lifecycle, starting from exploring and explaining data, creating visualizations, generating code, and building models. And then I'm going to open up the floor for some Q&A for about 10 minutes. So let's begin. What is SaaS Viya Copilot? So if this is your first time hearing about it, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but welcome to SaaS. It is our conversational AI companion for SaaS users to transform natural language into analytical actions. It provides intuitive explanations for our users as they navigate the entire data and AI lifecycle, making it a lot easier and a lot more simple for people who maybe have more or less experience to navigate through SaaS. So what is SaaS Viya Copilot, and how do we interact with it? Built in partnership with Microsoft and leveraging the latest foundational models from OpenAI, SaaS Viya transforms your natural language prompts and queries into real-world actions in the platform. These capabilities can vary widely depending on the product that you're using inside of SaaS Viya, but in this presentation, we're going to walk through some of those in detail. Ultimately, what you should take away from this for your business is 2 things. SaaS Viya, 1, it makes your technical users way better at their job and able to achieve things much more quickly and focus on the processes and activities that they need to on a day-to-day basis, being more productive. And it takes your non-technical users and democratizes the data and AI lifecycle. It really makes it simple for someone who is a non-technical, non-coder to gain access to something that normally would have had to interface through a much more technical person, taking more time, ultimately extending the time that it takes to make a decision. But what SaaS Viya Copilot does is it brings a new, more efficient, and productive way to use SaaS Viya. Ultimately, what it does is it blurs the line between coders and non-coders, and specifically what we're doing is we're embedding AI-powered intelligence that helps those users better understand the processes, retrieve guidance on how to perform tasks, and ultimately get help in executing those tasks for enhanced decisioning and productivity. We speed up development, we can generate, enhance, and debug code. We can provide guided recommendations, accelerate repetitive tasks. Beyond that, we have intelligence and decision support offering explanations and insights at every step of the way. We can summarize and translate complex outputs into actual business insights. And ultimately suggest improvements for model performance, hyperparameters, feature engineering, improvements to your dashboards, improvements to your code, covering pretty much the entire experience. And lastly, what I want to focus in on here for a second is the human-in-the-loop execution. SaaS Viya Copilot is completely interactable with humans. Your humans and your coders and your non-coders, your professionals and thought leaders are making those decisions in SaaS Viya. At the end of the day, you are approving what the AI brings to you, and the AI cannot run amok. Now, as we start to transition into a more agentic framework that you may be hearing about in our conversations as we go about today, that will transition into more of a human-on-the-loop kind of concept in which the person tends to check in on AI, basically see how it's performing over time, and review that. And as SaaS Viya Copilot becomes more agentic in the future, that role will shift into that human-on-the-loop point of view. So where do we begin? Like every good story, it begins with a question. SaaS Viya Copilot begins in supporting our data and AI lifecycle right here. So SaaS Viya has been the platform bringing together your entire experience across the data and AI lifecycle, like I said before. But with the capability to provide detailed explanations, deliver intelligent suggestions, and execute upon these actions, SaaS Viya Copilot opens up access to all of these different activities inside of this lifecycle that were traditionally cordoned off just for our most intelligent and most technical friends. But beyond that, we can support those technical friends as well with those informed explanations, intelligent suggestions, and executable actions. Those people are able to really gain a lot of value from this tool simply by interacting with it and just playing around and learning how it best works. So today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how that you can do that, and begin with some best practices for non-technical users. So today, I'm going to introduce some context to our case. I'm a non-technical professional at a bank, and I have a general knowledge of statistics and data science, and I have a couple of ideas of what questions I want answered for my bank. I'm seeking to take my data through the entire data AI lifecycle with just using natural language and not having to click, drag, or really code anything. And I'm going to take you as far as we can through today. For things like model manager and intelligent decisioning, we're going to see those coming in slightly later versions. But right now, I'm seeking to build and publish a machine learning model predicting loan quality for my financial institution. So we can begin by talking a little bit about SAS for data discovery. Where we begin is finding out what data we need to use. We have a context-aware data and asset discovery capability that can basically give you the freedom to ask very general questions, and then ultimately that comes back queried to you as a variety of data sets for you to choose from based on what you need. That natural language exploration allows you to understand and assess data. We can get ultimately leading to more trusted decisions and an embedded and governed experience. So right now, we're just going to begin by showing you a little bit of an example of how you can do that inside of SAS Viya Copilot. So getting started, we enter our information catalog tool, now known as data governance. And this is the exact experience that you've seen, but you may notice something new on the top right, our SAS Viya Copilot logo. So we're going to open that right up and open up our Copilot window. And it has a few questions that we can get started with. So we can ask it things, general questions that will retrieve from documentation to say what items can be cataloged. And we can ask it a few other things along those lines, basically giving simple explanations in quite good granular detail that anyone can understand. And we can ask it things like, how is the sensitive data identified in the tool? So that we're ultimately not leveraging any sensitive data when we build out our model later on. We get a detailed description of how sensitive data is identified in Information Catalog, and then we can ask it which data is actually sensitive. And when we run that query, forgive the typo there for a moment, it'll work out. But when we work out that query, it will ultimately pull us back our list of all the sensitive data sets that contain that sensitive information. And we just have one right now, it's customer FMT. So we know to avoid that, we're able to see that it's sensitive as it's told us how we tag our sensitive data. But ultimately, I want complete data sets when I'm coming to build my model. So I want to see what data sets are greater than 70% complete. So once we type that in and run the query, we'll get some feedback as to which data sets we can leverage to do so. Ultimately, we're building home loan and loan prediction data. So we're going to try to ask SAS Viya Copilot to see data about home loans and home equity. SAS Viya Copilot delivers me two options back. I see my home equity data set is right at the top here. I want to go in and explore and see what kind of values are inside of it. I find that they kind of match what I'm trying to look for, so we're ultimately able to select this data set and move on to the next stage. This is SAS Viya Copilot for augmented analytics. You experience it in our visual analytics platform. But this gives you the chance to manipulate data, build dashboards from generative AI prompts, and uncover insights faster with automated data storytelling and explanations. It will take that natural language context and run those complex calculations and visual statistics that you know SAS for well, and ultimately gives you a very, very manipulatable and very, very easy to use tool for BI and visual analytics that saves your business analysts hours. So let's begin with our example. So to start, we want to show some of our data exploration capabilities. So we asked SAS Viya Copilot to pull in our HMEQ or home equity data set that we found in our previous motion on data governance. SAS Viya Copilot interacts with our information catalog tool in the back end, and after a little bit of waiting, we'll see the HMEQ data pulled into the left side of our screen and into our dashboard. From here, we can deliver a relatively generic prompt that will allow our Copilot to do some thinking and decision making and ultimately deliver us the best version of the dashboard that it recommends. So the Copilot query here we have is this data set contains information about home loans. I want a compelling dashboard, adding 3 different types of visuals that each offer unique insights into loan operations. Avoid using the same chart more than once. Arrange the visuals in the typical dashboard layout. At the end, add a bold header with a subtitle at the top and a standard footer with a brief summary at the bottom. Use a stylish text color, enhance visual appeal, and ensure each visual includes meaningful title that reflects its analytical purpose in the report, and complete the dashboard. And as you see it working in the background, you're seeing everything I've asked for slowly start to form. These are things that often are done manually, often involve a lot of coordination by your business analysts, and as I said before, often take hours. So what Copilot does is it shortens that process, and it goes beyond shortening the process for just building your visuals. It goes into the process of analyzing your data, delivering actual insights. And ultimately, you can go about changing your dashboard after it comes out with this generative tool. You are able to change colors, change data labels. You are able to manipulate data in such a way that, let's say you had a southeast and northeast region that you would turn into one large east region. You could query that in SAS via Copilot, and it will deliver you back a new and adjusted, new and enriched version of your data. So ultimately what I've just shown here as well is asking for some, and I'm going to take a little second to pause this so you guys can read it, but asking for some insights into exactly what's going on inside of our line chart today. So basically what SAS via Copilot can do is create very relevant data storytelling, unique to your data and context-aware to your data. So if you're asking about sales values, it will be able to tell you things along the lines of, here's the seasonality you should expect, here are the trends we see month to month, and here are some outliers that might not be normal. But lastly, we want to add a visual outline, we want to add a text visual outlining these findings, and I want to place it right before the line chart. And I want it to highlight the important parts of that text. Copilot understands that. It delivers a detailed summary and highlights those important parts of text so our executives can read them and get the quick value that they need out of them. And lastly, there's two more things that we're going to do. We're going to preview a chart comparing loan size to debt, and then we're going to have it added to our presentation. So what SAS via Copilot is going to do is going to spend a little time thinking, and then it's going to give us a chart that best represents what we need to compare loan size to debt. And we're given the option to place it into our presentation or our dashboard today, or ultimately retry and find another better solution. So we've manually added it. I study this on a laptop screen, so it may not be as visible, but ultimately at the end of the day, one of the most important parts we're going to do now is make the entire dashboard interactive. If you have built a lot of dashboards, you know how time-consuming this is, and you know the effort that's involved. So there's some thinking involved that SAS via Copilot's going to do, and in just a few moments after we give it some time to think, it will ultimately come back to us with a response saying your dashboard is now interactive, and then we can go and start playing with how the visuals change based on interactions with each of the other bar charts and pie charts. Now, traditionally, this takes hours. As I've said before, generally what we've seen with SAS via Copilot is you can do this in less than an hour, even around half an hour if you've done the right practice. So this saves you a lot of time and a lot of effort when it comes to those day-to-day business analytics tasks. Next, and I know this is what a lot of you are excited for, SAS via Copilot for code assistance. It already exists in VS Code today, and we're going to be seeing it come into SAS Studio in the next couple of months. And in the near future, we're going to see agentic capabilities introduced. If you want to review my friend Sean Meelan's presentation from yesterday, this will be very relevant to you. So ultimately, what we do is we can generate, format, and refine Python code, explain existing SAS code to generally and easily understand complex scripts, and generate comments in line for code. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. So showing an example here today, we're able to observe some of our data that we have in our SAS Studio environment. From here, we are going to be highlighting some of our code and opening up our context box. So that provides a list of things we can do, like comment, examples, explain, find problems, refine, reformat, and other options that are going to be growing as we start to expand our capabilities. And it can also find problems in code as well. So what we want it to do at first, I think we don't like the formatting of this code. So what we want to do is ask it to reformat, reformat our code. So we take it a second, we let it think, and it gives us back an option, which we can accept or decline whether we like the code or not. We've decided we like this new formatting, and we'd like it to be explained and add some details. But wait, we want to refine this code first. We want to rename our x variable to our y variable. And with that, SAS Viya Copilot brings us back refined code, gives us the option to accept it, and from there we can move forward. Lastly, I want to jump in and see some of the things along the lines of providing an explanation for some of our code. So SAS Viya Copilot opens in the right side and line by line analyzes our code, breaking down exactly what it's doing in the back end, explaining to those who do not know what code does or may not be able to understand this or may not be familiar with SAS code exactly what's going on, giving them insight into the syntax. And then moving forward a little bit, we'll see it complete its summary and additional notes and suggestions, also some references to our documentation. Next, I can ask it some general questions about how do I schedule Python code. SAS spends some time thinking. And delivers a detailed answer. So jumping forward a bit, as I know we're quite excited to see what's going on, we can also see SAS generate some code as well. That is actually another part of this video that we'll show later, but we can jump into model pipeline development. So model pipeline development is our drag and drop AI model creation tool, ultimately where you're developing model pipelines without having to do a lot of that manual coding. But what you'll see here is a solution pretty much designed around suggesting the next best nodes, suggesting how to do feature improvements, optimization of nodes, and creating the best model pipeline for your data. So what it does to start is it works to understand your data, analyzes your data, and then offers you some solutions to ultimately start beginning that process of building your model. Today, we're going to start a little bit of exploration to kind of move forward. So when we start that exploration, it gives Copilot a little bit of time to think actually a little bit deeper about what it's doing. So, excuse me on there. So the exploratory process begins, and it starts running a variety of exploratory trials in the back end. As you see that number start to run up, you start to see things like K-scores and performance metrics around our models. And we're going up to 38 exploratory trials. By the time we reach the end, it may be in the hundreds. Fast forwarding a little bit, ultimately, it comes back to us with any recommendations. We ask it to add those recommendations to our model. With no clicking, no dragging, we've been able to get a very defined answer as to why it chose these models, what the logic it was to basically put these models in the way that we did, and ultimately run those models. So we let that happen in the background. And by the end, we can ultimately jump into our data tab and have SAS Viya Copilot explain what's going on in these models. So as you see here, we can ask it questions about explain the model results in general, and it brings us back a general kind of point of view on exactly how our gradient boosting model performed, what those certain metrics are that we really care about, and ultimately why it's the best model or why it wasn't the model selected for our champion. You see things like fit statistics and ultimately that conclusion ROC score. So jumping forward, we want to ask SAS Viya Copilot to add a gradient boosting model, or sorry, not a gradient boosting model, a different model to this, a regression model, a logistic regression model to the tool. And just by clicking to add that, it is added to the pipeline. We can run it in Copilot without having to click any buttons or run anything like that. No clicking, no dragging. And with that, we have a completely built model pipeline in which we can go about comparison. So, that being the case, SAS Viya Copilot is also able to improve the existing models. We can ask it to optimize the models we have, and with a variety of trials, we are approaching around, I think, 200 in this version as well. We basically get an optimized hyperparameter set for our logistic regression, and we can apply those improvements here. And you see those changes happen in real time. Lastly, we're going to be adding some questions about what are the difference between logistic regression and gradient boosting models, just in case we don't know what's going on, in case we're one of those more novice data scientists. So one of the things we have to remember, especially with SAS Viya Copilot, is it's meant to support a variety of people, from the very bottom to the very top, the most educated to the least. Ultimately, we want to provide that value and provide those ease of reference for those who can navigate and who can't. So with SAS Viya Copilot, we've created this new experience, and thus we've built our model. We've been able to take ourselves from the data preparation step. We've been able to take ourselves out into visual analytics. We've been able to take ourselves through Model Studio, and in the near future, and we've been able to develop our own code. So in the near future, we're also going to be able to see this taken out to intelligent decisioning. We're going to see this taken out to Model Manager. We're going to see this available in every part of SAS Viya. So the idea is, ultimately at the end of the day, learning Copilot will be a part of the future with whatever you're doing with SAS. It's going to be important. It's going to build the foundation for your most and your least technical. And at the end of the day, it is the future. This is the foundation from which we will be moving into agentic AI. And it is also one of the tools through which you will be able to access agentic AI. In the next few months, we're going to see SAS Viya Copilot for Model Studio get connected to our MCP server and start to be able to build out entire flows for you with simple prompts, one simple prompt. And the same will go for our code generation tools, like I said before with my friend Sean Meelan's presentation. That's going to also surface in SAS Studio. So these are all things coming down the line. These are all very exciting reasons to get involved with SAS, get involved with your professionals working with you, and try these things out in your office. Figure out what the next steps are to get involved, and we want to create a champion user out of you. So with that, I want to open the floor to any questions and tell you all to come see us at our SAS Viya Copilot booth down on the Innovation Hub floor.
Do we have any questions?
I had a couple things. So the first one, when you're showing all the graphs and it was putting it together and you're telling me which tables are available, does that only work with internally housed data sets, or would it be something that could go to external data sets that are stored in other platforms?
So any API you would use to connect your current data to SAS Viya is leverageable through this existing Copilot foundation.
So if you had like a library set up to the data, it would allow you to...
In theory, yeah. If it's data available to access in SAS Viya today, it shouldn't change at all with Copilot.
Okay. And then when it's generating the code to create all of those fancy tables and whatnot, can you tell it to give you the code that's behind all that it used to generate it?
I believe that is a capability. I would need to confirm with a couple of my engineers. My friend Falco has shown a lot of the back-end stuff. I focus more on the marketing and the external side, but what I would say is you could most likely do something along those lines, but that would be something I need to confirm with my engineering team. Okay. It's not been asked of me yet.
Thank you.
Excuse me?
Hi. So to extend her question, right, how can I reuse that same prompts? Like, can I save those prompts so that I can reuse it?
You can save those prompts. We have some pre-built prompts already in the tool that can basically support those kind of activities. I have not been asked about customization for saved prompts, but we do have a variety of prompts that basically come predefined for you to navigate through and start trying out and playing with to start. So depending on what you're trying to do, there may be something already there.
Yeah, so you showed an example where it pulled a table as you queried and it pulled the information, right? Let's say if I don't have access to restricted data, how does it differentiate not to pull the tables which are restricted, let's say PII, versus just going on, and even though I don't have an access, can I create a prompt and pull the data that I'm not supposed to look at?
So the idea is with the correct management and information in the data governance tools that we offer, and the basically correct orchestration and governance on the human end, you can very well control what data flows into SAS Viya Copilot for visual analytics or SAS Viya in general, and what data stays out. So ultimately, in making that selection, you're able to keep PII out of your dashboards. Does that answer your question?
Let's say if I have, does it figure out based on the user, the level of access they have, and can fine grain and make sure it lists the tables that he or she can look at? Because there can be other users who would have loaded the data into SAS, right? There may be tables available which has sensitive information. If I just give a prompt for a table which I don't have access to, is it intelligent enough to make sure it doesn't pull that table out?
From what I understand, it's fully based on whether or not your company has built those data governance guidelines in place. It gets a little bit beyond SAS Viya Copilot and more into the space of data governance there.
All right, we have about 1 more minute.
This may be somewhat related to the previous question, but do you know if using Copilot inside of Viya requires or is, how do I say it, requires the ability for the data that is used and generated inside of the tool to be able to be trained on the LLMs in general? I know like our company has a pretty strict policy around the data that we input into the tool not being able to be used in the process of training the LLMs themselves, and I just wanted to understand a little bit more around that.
So we do not use customer data in training SAS Viya Copilot. SAS Viya Copilot, when you send your data and query into SAS Viya, ultimately what it does is it uses that query, uses your data to answer that question, sends it into the server, and then once it's done answering that question, deletes the data so that you don't have any situations where, let's say, a large-scale organization uploads all their specs into ChatGPT, and then all of a sudden I can ask ChatGPT about their specs and get everything sent to me. So that's not something you'll ever have to worry about with SAS Viya. Our trust and security there is top-notch, and we have not experienced any, and ultimately I don't think you should ever experience anything like that.